So the big question is this: how do most agents who struggle to get the information that most successful agents hoard to themselves grow and prosper without this information? That's the big question, and this video cast is the answer. Welcome to Real Estate Rockstars. I'm your host, Pat Hyben. And now, for the review of the day. Meat and potatoes, 5 stars from Ben Incusi. 5 stars. Meat and potatoes is the name of this review. Pat, I've listened to Real Estate Rockstars consistently for over 2 years and love how you dig out the meat and potatoes from your guests. When the guests casually say something intriguing, Pat makes sure to dig deeper and to help us all understand the value of what was just said. This podcast has definitely helped me and my team grow. Thank you, Ben, for your 5-star review. Keep the comments coming, guys. I love them. And remember, I eat feedback for breakfast, so give me a 1-star review if you want, or a 5-star review if you want. I don't care. And the more reviews we get, the better guests we get. So please, subscribe first, and then leave us a review or wherever you're listening. All right, Rockstar Nation, listen, I got a guest here that was recommended to me because, a lot of you guys out there are building teams and or want to build teams, and there's things going on that I'm getting questions on. There's comments on the Facebook site about, unfortunately, people having teams kind of implode or having people leave their teams, struggling with getting their teams to function at a high level, struggling at getting their teams to basically do what they say that they're going to do after the first month, and a lot of issues regarding teams, building teams, deconstructing teams, and so forth. So I got a team expert. Mr. Jason Treu has a company called Jason Treu Executive Coaching, and I asked him to get on today from Dallas, Texas, and kind of give us some answers and help us out here. So without further ado, Jason, welcome to Real Estate Rockstars.
Hey, thanks for having me on your show and speaking to your fantastic tribe.
Hey, buddy, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself so they could get to know you better?
Sure. So I spent most of my career working in Silicon Valley, so with really high-level leaders like Steve Jobs, Mark Cuban, Reed Hastings, the CEO of Netflix. Everyone watches that all the time. Well, I worked with him for a long time, and a lot of people to really understand leadership, management, and really build great teams. And so I was a part of a company that scaled to $1 billion+ that got sold to Oracle. I've worked in a lot of different size organizations over my career. And I went to law school, I got my master's in communications. I wrote a book called Social Wealth that sold 50,000 copies on how to build great business relationships. I did a TEDx a few years ago that's done extremely well in views. And so I'm here today.
Well, I'm glad you're here, man. That's a great introduction. So let's get right into the nitty gritty here. So basically what we have here, Jason, is we have real estate agents who are salespeople, right? They're raised as salespeople. They're raised as independent contractors, and then they eventually actualize, or what's happening is they eventually actualize into small businesses. Many of them didn't anticipate becoming a small business when they got their real estate license, but they saw that a way to leverage things financially and a way to leverage things with time off is to build a team. And a lot of them are struggling. A lot of them it's kind of like an airplane taking off, right? You hit all that turbulence, in the beginning, and in the end when you're landing. And they're in the beginning stages of building teams, and they're hitting a lot of turbulence. And I'm wondering if we could just delve in right away to, what is something that new business owners, new team builders need to be thinking about, need to be doing from day one?
Yeah, well, I think one of the things that people just have to remember is building great teams, managing and leading people are learned behaviors. I mean, people are not born with these skill sets. You have to learn them. They are learned behaviors. And so if you don't invest in yourself and figure out not only your own leadership style, but how to do this on a consistent basis over time and put effort in over the years, you won't be able to scale your business, because the same business at 5 people is different at 10, at 15, at 20. It requires different skill sets. It requires different leadership abilities. It requires different business skill sets. And so I think you have to put that in the back of your head as you start to go on this journey. Otherwise, you're going to be lost, because the things that we're going to talk about today aren't going to work anyways, because you won't have those best practices and things in order to get the most out of the people that you're working with and create situations that will get them to want to do anything for you. And so I think the primary thing is you have to build a foundation, and the foundation has to be built on a high level of trust.
Okay.
And I think
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about trust. I don't want to just leave it as a chapter heading or a cliche, because that's a big cliche now. Know, like, and trust. Everyone talks about, oh, they need to know, like, and trust you. So that applies with your team as well. Define trust and define exactly what someone listening needs to do to build trust. Let's just say they have no social skills. I want you to dumb it down so a third grader can understand. How do I build trust on my team?
Right. So when you take a look at trust and you break down the components of trust, right? So if someone says, hey, this person trusts me, or I have a lot of trust in someone, what does that really mean? And so the core components of trust are caring, competency, reliability, and sincerity, right? And so those are pretty obvious, right?
Let's slow that down. Caring,
which means someone cares about you and you care about them. You show them that you are personally invested in them. They are personally invested in you. You want to support them. They matter to you, and vice versa, right? And I would think
I think a lot of high achievers struggle with that one, because they just want to, hire people and run things and have results, and they skip that whole caring. It's not that they don't give a shit about the people. It's that they want to be reserved, so that if they had to fire that person, they could immediately. You know what I mean? And that they almost want to not attach themselves to them, not care for them. So what advice do you have?
Well, that doesn't work today. I mean, because people today are going to work and getting a lot of their socialization from their job. That used to not be the case, right? There was a stat that I was reading in 1980, the average person had 2 to 3 go-to people to share their personal issues with or challenges. I mean, you think of that as sort of best friend-ish.
Yes.
Well, they did the same study again in 2015, and it's down to 0 to 1, right? Loneliness in the U.S. is somewhere between 25 to 40%. And loneliness means I feel alone, not that I am alone, right?
Oh, wow.
And Dan Cacioppo, if you read it, professor at University of Chicago, has been doing this research for 30 years, right? So that's extremely high. And when someone feels lonely, they feel disconnected. When they feel disconnected, they're disengaged. And what disengaged means, I don't care. I don't give a shit about anything other than myself, and maybe giving some level of discretionary effort, but it's not working at peak performance. And so today, when people come to work, they are looking for much more than a job 9 to 5, or however you want to equate the hours to. They want, people say they want to feel a sense of purpose. They want a sense of value. Well, end of the day, when you cut away on what all of those things are, they want people to care about them, and they want to care about whatever it is that they're doing. And you have to create that atmosphere for them. And the only way that starts is you have to start caring first, because no one's going to come into your job and say, wow, I'm a hugely caring person, and I don't care what you do as a leader. right? I mean, because you're the one who holds all the power. And if you hold all the power, people are going to model what you say and what you do. So if you don't care, they're not going to care. And and when you look at trust, as we go through this, the most important component by far is caring. Because if you look at the rest, reliability, sincerity, and competency, right? In our own personal life, we have people that are completely unreliable, but they care about us a lot, right? They never show up on time to meet us out at a restaurant or come out to our house. But you don't get rid of those people. But if someone's highly reliable and shows up all the time, but doesn't care at all about you in your personal life, you're not keeping them around. I mean, maybe you do for transactional reasons or because they're the person that's moving you, right, from a moving company, but it's not someone close and dear in your heart. Well, it's the same thing in business, right? I mean, people that care about you, you treat them significantly differently. And so when you look at that paradigm, if that's the key component of it, right, you want to learn on how can I build more caring, because the more caring I'm going to build with someone, the faster I'm going to build trust. Right now, you can't have people that are completely not accountable for reliability, sincerity, and competency. I'm not saying that, but I'm merely showing you the lever when you look at the research says it's on the caring component of that. And so if you're a leader who's like, well, just come to work and do your job and leave, and whether I'm nice to you or not, you're making a lot of money. Well, that's not how people see life, and that's not how they view it. And if you want to view that lens, your business will only grow so big before it craters to the ground, because those people will be looking for someone else who actually cares about them.
Wow, deep stuff. Okay, so you started to spit off a bunch of words there when we got into the beginning of, how to build trust. What else besides caring?
Well, the key thing is that when we take a next step level up from there, we start to figure out, okay, well, the key part is vulnerability, because vulnerability is really the key lever for trust. And most people get it the exact opposite. They believe, oh, I've got to trust someone, and then I start to be vulnerable. I start sharing myself. I start opening up to them.
What's up, brokers, team leaders, office managers, and rainmakers of teams? I got a question for you today. What are the two most frustrating things about running a real estate team? The two things that cause you more headaches than anything else. Think about it. The brokers I've talked to have all given me the same answer: recruiting and retention. If you're in the same boat, if nothing you've tried seems to work, I've got some good news. Your problem finding, recruiting, and retaining high-quality agents are about to be over. I'm launching my new Reed course, a course that provides an in-depth, first-ever look at the recruiting and retention secrets of the industry's top recruiters. To kick off Reed launch, I'm offering the course along with two other high-value items at a super low price to podcast listeners. Since I'm throwing in two free items with my Reed Secrets course, I'm going to simply call it my 1-2-3 discount package. Okay, so let me talk to you about the 1-2-3 discount package. In addition to Reed, you're going to get a subscription for each of your teammates or anybody in your office to my Big Profit weekly jackpot emails, which are basically agents from around the world giving advice on how to increase your profit on a daily basis in this business. If your agents put these effective, easy to implement tips to use, their sales and most importantly, their profits will improve. Plus, I'll provide you with a year's worth of monthly sales meetings, content to have at your sales meeting, so you don't have to struggle figuring out what to say to your agents or your team. I'm calling it my Lunch and Learn sales training series. That's an entire year's worth of sales meetings that you won't have to plan and that your agents are guaranteed to get massive value from. So to recap, purchasing the 1-2-3 discount package gets you 1, my brand new Retoot course. 2, my Big Profit Agents weekly jackpot emails for everybody in your office. And 3, a year's worth of lunch and learn training sessions. If you want this limited time package, act fast and go to hibandigital.com/123. Real easy, hibandigital.com/123.
Yeah, it's the exact.
So at what level of vulnerability? So here's the thing, right? Like, and I'll speak for myself, right? Because I had a big team for years, and on some level, I didn't want to be vulnerable to them because I thought they would use it against me, right? You know what I mean? Like, if they ever left or there was ever an issue, they could use that against me. And also, to agree, it was none of their business is how I thought about it in my mind. So what level of vulnerability should somebody have? Should they be spilling their guts out about all their family issues and problems? Or is it a different level of vulnerability? Kind of explain that one.
I think there are boundaries, and I think you've got to set things up in how you share about things that are going on. I think vulnerability is getting to know people and asking questions such as, okay, well, what is the most important lesson you've learned in the last year? Who's your personal hero? Tell me about your experiences. Tell me things about when you like to be approached in the morning. How do you like to receive information, right? I mean, a lot of these things are vulnerable in getting to know someone. It's not telling someone your entire life story. Now, there may be a point when you need to, right? There could be a point in the company where you need everyone to galvanize around someone. Maybe someone is ill in the company. I mean, vulnerability really is about sharing. And there isn't one particular area, but it's opening up with someone, or it's saying to someone, look, we need to grow the company, and I need your input and help to figure out how to do this, and I'm open to suggestions and ideas and things that we could do together. So what do you think, right? I don't have all the answers. Those are pretty vulnerable things for a leader to say and mention. And it's also assuming that I don't have all the answers and I don't know everything, but there are a bunch of people in this organization, and everyone is smart, everyone can problem solve, everyone can help and throw out ideas and suggestions. So I'd like to enroll you in that process and be a part of this, which is true, right? I mean, everyone can if they step up, but most people just don't, because the people who run the business don't give them permission. They don't care. They don't actually listen to them. And they don't incent them in order to do that, not monetarily, but by saying, wow, that's a great idea, or I love your idea, but here's why we're doing it this way. Keep giving me suggestions, because a lot of these future ones may be really helpful to me, right? I mean, things of that nature create vulnerability, right? And there's a point when you need to start self-disclosing with people, right? I think a lot of times some leaders don't share, well, how did I start this business? Where did I come from? What exactly happened to make me go on this journey? What was the darkest day I've had being a real estate professional, right? All of those things help because it gives other people permission to share and feel like they belong, feel like they're connected. And that's what creates a very tight-knit group of people. And those people are the ones that are willing to work late at night, do anything for you. Because a couple years ago, when I asked all my clients, I asked the people that were reporting into them at least 1 or 2 levels down. So why do you stay up to 11 o'clock or 1 o'clock in the morning working hard, right? Like, what's your main goal in all this? And when you really dig down, the key reason is they didn't want to disappoint either their manager or the person running the business. And that was their driving force, not making more money, not being successful, right? And what that means is you've enrolled someone in a contribution point of view, right? And that when someone says, I don't want to disappoint you, they will do anything. They will drive like 100 miles for no reason just to solve a problem, right? I mean,
yeah. No, that's great. Right? I don't want to. I mean, yeah. I mean, I wish I had more people like that. I don't want to. I don't want to disappoint you. I mean, no, that's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, so let's talk about you basically have three levels of having team members be hyper loyal and love you, with you loving them, and effective, and all things that you want your team members to be. And that's comfort, communication, and collaboration. So let's talk about the second one, because comfort ties into trust, essentially. Trust, communication, and collaboration, or problem solving is another way to say collaboration. So talk to me about communicating. Like, can you give me some specific, very specific do's and don'ts when communicating with your real estate team?
Sure. So one of the things when you start communicating and building relationships with them is you need to know where your relationships are with all these people. So one of the things I and my clients do is ask people they're managing or in these teams, especially, if they can't ask someone if there's 50 people in the company, but oftentimes they're managing smaller groups of people. And I tell them to do an exercise, and that is to go to every person they manage one-on-one and ask them a series of questions. One, rate our relationship on a scale of 1 to 10, right? 1 being poor, 10 being great. Why do you give it that way? And you can have some level of debate. And then the next question.
Is this all in public though? Like, so let people listen.
That one's one-on-one. That one would be one-on-one, right?
So go to your team members one-on-one and go, wait, but you want them to answer to your face, right?
Yeah.
How do you base our relationship on a scale of 1 to 10? 1 being the worst, 10 being the best. And then bite your lip and wait for a number to come out of their mouth. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. And then ask them why they gave you that. And then you can have a conversation with them about that to gain clarity. And then the third part of it is ask them how to move it closer to a 10. Because one of the biggest problems you have in an organization is people who don't speak up and don't share. And you don't really know where their relationship is, right? No. I had 100 people do this exercise.
What do you do when they spit back and they're like, oh, well, put that in context, or in what terms, or say they give you a lawyer answer, like, well, I can't answer that. I need to know, what you mean, like, as far as a relationship. And do you have to just spit back and say, no, it's not, overall, how do you rank our relationship? And
I think, yes. And I would say, and the reason, if someone does that, you already should be saying to yourself, I'm not in a good place with that person, because they don't feel comfortable giving me a number, because they're worried there's going to be some negative ramifications if they tell me the truth. And here's the problem. Most organizations have a bunch of people that are trying to impress other people and look fancy and not be candid, right?
Damn. Okay.
And if you're not candid, you don't really have a great company. Bridgewater Capital, if everyone reads this, is Ray Dalio. He started a company, a hedge fund, and it was nothing. It was a small little hedge fund, and he built the company on radical honesty, and that is the core fundamental value, and is now the biggest hedge fund in the entire world. And people want to work there, from every person who's in a hedge fund, right? And he started it based on that, because he realized that people were not sharing information, and that lack of truth-telling was inhibiting the business flow and their business to be successful. And so if you're a small business and you don't know where your people are rating you, and you don't really know where your relationship are, you're already in deep trouble before you do anything else, because no one's going to sit in a meeting with you and come up with an idea that they're not sure is going to work, because the fear is they're going to get fired or there's going to be some negative ramifications.
Right. Yeah. And it's kind of like, Uber and Lyft, why are they better than cabs? Not economically, the fact that they're cheaper, but because, with the cabs, there was no rating system. There was no accountability to say, man, you fucking drove too fast, or you got lost, or whatever. And this is a form of accountability where you could say, how do you rate our relationship on a scale of 1 to 10? And hopefully they're going to tell you the truth, right? Hopefully they're not going to say 9, even though it's a 2. Like, how do you make sure they don't do that? Because if you're their boss and you can fire them You know, how do you make sure they just don't buffer it just to not have drama?
Well, I think the other thing is the third question is important is how do I move it closer to a 10? Because maybe someone gives you a 9, but there's substantial things that you could do in order to move that relationship forward when they give you that answer. And if you do those things, right, you ask this question on a monthly basis to manage people to know where they're at, and that number's going to vary. And maybe in the beginning, they don't give you the most truthful number, but they'll give you details that will help you. That will really help you move it forward and understand where they're at. And also, as you go over time, if they aren't comfortable in the beginning, they'll get more comfortable because you keep asking it, right? And if you're not defensive to it and you embrace it, it's a great way to get better. It's a great way to set the tone, right? And whenever you do that and you lead with it, it's being vulnerable. So now it's much easier for you also to give constructive feedback to the person that's sitting in front of you in terms of their work product. Because now you've given them first the opportunity to share how they're feeling. Now they're much more open and receptive to hearing what you think about them, right? And about how to motivate them, what things they need to do better in their job, like how to invest in themselves, like other steps they need to take. People view it significantly differently because that's what vulnerability is about, right? Vulnerability is about someone has to share first and someone has to go first.
Yeah.
And when you put yourself on the firing line,
It's got to be you. It's got to be you.
Yeah, it's got to be you.
Go first. Yeah.
Because if you don't do that one-on-one with people, it's very difficult in a group setting to get people to share across the table from each other because everyone's worried about impressing other people and making themselves look right and look good, not be the best, right? It's kind of like the Navy SEALs. Like, they set the tone in when they do, after every mission, they go in and ask themselves a series of questions in a group. But the reason that's effective is because they have trust, and their whole point is, we want to get better in the next mission, no matter if we did it perfectly and how we did everything, or we made mistakes. But the bottom line is we know we can get better the next time, but the only way is if we're candid. And if we have, right, if we say, what were our results? What do we want to do? What can we do better? You know, and once we start asking those questions, well, then of course we can get better as a group. But if we don't have the trust, right, the cab's a great example because everyone who's ridden the cab has gotten their trust broken because the person charged too much. They didn't start the meter. They missed turns, right? All the rest of the things we can think of. It's accountability and trust. And when that's broken, it's very difficult to manage and lead other people because they're not going to buy into what you're doing because you're not actually embodying what you say you are.
I want you to think about the word toolbox. What is a toolbox? A toolbox is a box full of tools that you use to build something great. At Real Estate Rockstars, we've created our own free toolbox. So everybody that comes on the show as a guest brings a tool with them, and we plow them all into this toolbox, and we give it away for our viewing audience to basically use as they wish. Everything we put in there is an actionable item that can be downloaded, can be printed, can be used immediately. And we got things like scripts and dialogues, checklists for teams, checklists to keep agents accountable, referral forms that are filled out at settlement to get referrals by your buyers and sellers. Everything you can think of that you could use on a regular basis about real estate is included in this toolbox, and it's helping agents worldwide sell more houses and make their jobs a lot easier and processes much more efficient. And the thing is, it's absolutely free. All you got to do is go to hibandigital.com/toolbox or text the word toolbox to 444-999. That's toolbox 444-999. Do it now. Hey, real estate agents and rock stars. If you're getting value out of the content in this episode, make sure you like the video and subscribe to this channel. Also, click the little bell icon to be notified about upcoming episodes. And I would also love it if you left a comment. and shared the most impactful tips and tactics you've learned from the knowledge shared in this episode, or even maybe make a suggestion requesting a topic of what you'd like to learn in future episodes. I welcome any feedback below. Now, back to the episode.
I love that, dude. I love it. Okay. And the more the better. At least once a month, guys, you should be sitting down and asking that question. Don't, even if it's repetitive, just keep doing it. It's the way that you're going to have an accountability level with your people in your building of trust and being an effective boss. Okay, let's move on to problem solving. So what are some tips you could give us on problem solving? Like what are the right ways and the wrong ways to problem solve with your team members?
Well, I think if you're getting a group of people together and you want to do a brainstorm, right? You want to say, okay, let's look at the numbers for the month or the week or whatever they are. I think you have to start to say, okay, here's our goal, right? And here's where we're at now. Like, talk about, like, what did we do well, right? What could we improve upon and how, and get everyone to start sharing and opening up and coming with ideas and suggestions.
How often should you do this?
Well, I mean, I think whatever cadence, I think you should do it every week at some level.
Every week. Right? And should you include everybody?
I think you've got to figure out the different groups of people that are going to move the needle forward for you, right? If you have a small office of people, I think it's good to include everyone, because you could get people from the front of the office who are admins who have ideas on things that you could do better, right? And I think for them to understand the process and get things together, it can be extremely helpful, because you never know where ideas are going to come from. And when I watch the best teams, and I've sat in on a lot of Fortune and Forbes, top 10 workplaces, and I watch different team levels. When the best teams, when the leader asks a question, everyone gives suggestions. Right now, they may not be right, and that's not the point, but they're voicing an opinion and they're speaking up, because that way the person running the office, the real estate agent, if 10 people are in the room, you have 10 people's ideas that then you can either move forward or work with, or you can use it against the ideas you have and pressure test them and see how other people are seeing them. Because again, one person, it's very difficult for you to know, right? If you have 10 people around you who can pressure test the idea, who can bring up counter arguments, you want to incorporate and get the team and require them to step up, right? Because all of them may come up with better ideas than you have, right? Or they'll look at a processes you're doing, saying, hey, we've got this new process in the office, and I've gotten some pushback on it. Let's talk about this and really understand, what do you all think we could be doing better on it? Now, right, you don't need to change, but you do need to listen to it, right? I was at Pixar, and they did this process called the Brain Trust after every movie, and I saw this with A Bug's Life. So they brought in everyone who was involved in the movie, including the producers, at different points in the shooting, and asked people to look at the movie and give ideas and suggestions, right? They had some rules on, being collegial and no personal attacks, right? And no long diatribes. But what happened is that everyone in the room could give suggestions and ideas and feedback, and that would be helpful to the producers potentially. Now, they didn't need to take any of the feedback or do anything of it, but they did. And it was a huge way where they were able to take a movie and move it consistently to being great movies. And the president of the company, Ed, I forgot his last name now, was always saying that in the beginning, all Pixar's movies were shit. And this process, the Brain Trust, was how they moved it forward, because they got constructive feedback from everyone else, so they weren't living in a bubble, right? And I think that's an important part of the process, is to get people to do that. Because there's another term called psychological safety. When in someone, you can Google this up, but it's about people feeling safe to share, right? And it's about looking at risk more objectively, and people taking a look what's going on, not emotionally getting mad and yelling at people, but looking at it as objectively. The point is not whether we did something right or wrong. What can we learn with it, and how can we get better? And when you can instill that and take out the emotion out of it, everyone consistently moves forward because we're all listening and we're keeping open and we're not closed off and we don't think our way is the best way.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And certainly you could make strides so that nothing is a personal affront, so no one will get their feelings hurt. You know what I mean? So it's all basically it's the old adage of focus on the system, not the person, right?
Yes.
And it's always a system. It's always a system, no matter what. It's a system problem, and it's a system issue meeting that you're going to address. That's it.
Yep. And the big part of this too is think to yourself in your personal life. The people that you care about, and when you set this up, you communicate better, you collaborate, you problem solve, and there's a lot more leeway, right? Like people that are in your inner circle and super close to you, if they do something that sort of upsets you, half the time you just let it go, and it goes out one ear and out the other, and you don't care about it. But people who are just acquaintances who you don't care about, you don't give them that leeway. So when you create this environment, people give you a lot more leeway as a leader and as a manager, as an owner. So you don't have to be right near as much as you do if you get people in a way that are looking at you very neutral or just as an acquaintance. So it's in your best interest to do that, because personally and professionally, we're the same people we show up as, right? I mean, it's not like you put a neat little bag and put it by the proverbial door when you walk in it. No, we're the same human beings, right? And that's how we treat people. So if you create an atmosphere that's much more forgiving, it's a lot easier to do that. Because if you wake up one day and you're having a crappy day, the people in your office that know they care about you saying, oh, they're having a crappy day because their kid's sick or their dog passed away, we'll give them a leeway because we understand the stress, because they know that they'll support you. So in the back of your head, part of this also comes into how making this is much easier, and that makes it much easier to be much more competitive against much larger organizations who don't have this.
Man, wow. This is good stuff, man. I appreciate you coming out and doing this, and I hope the Rockstar Nation is getting a lot from this. Jason, let's talk about your free gift. As you know, everybody comes on the show, brings a free gift. It's a item of utility that they can download, they can hang up on their corkboard, they can use in their daily business. What is your free gift that you brought us today?
So it's a game called Cards Against Mundanity, and 10,000 people have gone through it, from like Google, Amazon, and large companies of employees. And what it is that it builds trust extremely fast, and it does through being vulnerable through a group exercise in which you start sharing, and it's a question and answer. And obviously, everyone can use this that's listening to this, no matter if your team is just one person or 10, 20, or whatever it is. And you can also use it with people that you're selling with. I have real estate agents and people, even friends of mine, that I taught to use it at open houses and other things, just to start to build. Yeah, because when you start asking questions with people that get them to share things like, oh, I'd love, what are you most excited about in your life right now, right? They're going to talk about the things that they care about. Or I'd love to know, like, what are you most grateful for in your life right now, right? I mean, all these questions get people to talk about things that really elevate the conversation. And what I based this game off of a famous study where they had one-on-one interactions with complete strangers. And the original study had 54 grad students doing it. And they had 36 questions over 45 minutes. And these questions were pretty vulnerable. And at the end of it, 30% of the people rated their relationship with a complete stranger as the closest relationship in their life.
Huh. Wow.
So it's essentially, I could take everyone listening to this, go to a coffee shop, you can meet 4 people, and you walk away with the best friend in your life.
Yeah, man, right? I want these cards. Yeah.
So you can play them, and so you can play them with anyone, and you can do this in a group in a very short period of time, and it works simple. It's just a question and answer. Everyone asks the same question. You go in a group, and you just keep doing it, and you've got the cards right there.
Next thing you know, you got to memorize. You can whip them out of your tongue, anytime you get in a situation where you want to get to know somebody better, or you just want to pass some time and connect.
Yeah, and all you have to do is tell them what's interesting. If you tell someone it's a game and you just even say the name of the game, you don't need to show it to them. They'll just start playing it, because I do this when I go out. And I tried it originally by not doing it and just asking questions. And I got very mixed results. But when I told people there was a game involved, they just kept playing it. And when I go in groups of people in organizations, like, people just start playing. They never question it or like ask me more things or really get nervous about doing it. They'll just start pouring in and, I mean, answering questions. And some people start ending up crying and sharing information and doing things. But the amazing thing is how much better people know each other in a very short period of time, because the bar is so low, a snake could crawl over it.
Yeah. Wow. Well, okay, so great. So listen, guys, I'm going to put this on hibandigital.com/Jason Treu. Now, here's the funny thing. His name is not spelled like you would sound phonetically out. It's Treu. It's like true, but it's EU. So it's hibandigital.com/Jason, Treu. I'm going to put a link to Cards Against Mundanity. And I'm going to put a link to Jason's book. I'm going to put a link to all his social media contacts, everything. If you want to reach out to him and say thank you for coming on the show, I'm sure he would appreciate that. And Jason, listen, if I'm ever up in Dallas, Texas way, I'll definitely look you up and we can get together and break some bread.
Sounds good. I appreciate it.
And guys, if you want this game and you want all the other items of utility that we have in our Agent Success Toolbox, we have everything that people have brought on the show all together. You can get that at hibandigital.com/toolbox, or just text the word toolbox to 444-999. All that stuff will be in there, including Jason's questions. So thanks so much, Jason. Best of luck to you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Real Estate Rockstars. If this free content is giving you a ton of value, I want to ask a small favor in return. I need you to pull out your pointing finger and hit the subscribe button. Yes, hit subscribe, please. The more subscribers that we get on Real Estate Rockstars, the better guests are attracted to the shows. We'll get more guests from the top companies, from the top teams, and even more celebrity guests like Robert Kiyosaki and Barbara Corcoran. Also, if you're not a member of our free Facebook group, go to Real Estate Rockstars Radio right on Facebook and join the conversation. I'm on there myself on FaceTime Lives, and we have a lot of communications and questions about the show, and I'd love to see you there. And it's free. People ask me all the time, where am I on social media? I'm real easy to find. Just type in my name. My IG is I am Pat Hyben. It is blowing up on Instagram, adding tons of subscribers, and I'm on there probably twice a day. So definitely follow me on Instagram, as well as everywhere else. Thanks again for listening, and keep rocking.